There's some big threat out there, and you are gonna help me stop it.
First of all, amazing job on this film. This is exactly what I wanted from, actually it exceeded what I wanted from a Marvel movie. It has the action, but it has such a strong emotional punch. Now, this is such a unique chapter in the MCU. What was your North Star balancing the spy thriller elements along with the cosmic and existential themes in this film?
Well, yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad you liked it. I was coming right off of doing this show Beef that I made with a friend of mine, Lee Sung-jin, and a number of other friends that I brought on to this movie. And it felt like, he really had this faith in that show that these ideas about, emptiness and isolation were not niche ideas anymore, that those were universal ideas and that you could tell a story about that on a broad level and blend it with humor and blend it with action. Obviously not action quite on this scale, but, to a certain degree. And so that really was kind of our North Star going in, where it felt like, no, you can do this, and then can you do it at this scale? And that felt like such an interesting challenge to try.
Can you talk about applying that lens to characters like Yelena and Bob and Red Guardian, Alexei?
Yeah, well, I mean, the good thing is in this world, there's a lot of trauma to be mined. They've gone through a lot. And, so I think, especially when you have a character like Bob and Sentry the Void, and knowing that that's part of the story, I mean, that's such a rich character. And you talk to Paul Jenkins, who created it, and it always was meant to be a parable for mental health. So it's like, okay, we have to do something that plays in that world if we're going to be honest to who those characters. And then it becomes about how do we tie the sort of arcs of the other characters to be such that they fit with that antagonist. You see people online like, how are they going to beat that? And it's like, well, it is going to have to be some version of an internal journey, and then how do we dramatize that externally and make it work on an action movie level as well as an internal one?
Speaking of that, I want to talk about the characters that we have in this, because you said that Thunderbolts, you wanted to give every character a clean slate. That included somebody like Bucky Barnes. What was the challenge introducing him in a way that both felt fresh and true to his story?
Yeah, I think, with Bucky, it's like, first off, just to have Sebastian Stan in your movie, it's like such a privilege, but also, he's been through a lot of what they've been through, and he's resolved a lot of those arcs that they have not yet resolved. And so the challenge there was really like, what is a new arc that we can take Bucky on? And this idea of sort of watching him try to uncomfortably fit and embracing a new path and wondering, like, having done all of this stuff, and there's a kind of meta angle also, right? Like, he's been in so many of these movies. Is there some new path to helping the world? And then finding, I think, as anyone find, their frustrations in that it's not as immediate as you would want it to be. And maybe in the end, even though it seems so unexpected, like this group of misfits could be exactly the right home for him because he has so much wisdom to offer them, having gone through what they have not yet processed.
Absolutely. And I love that, because I love that these ragtag characters kind of form this ensemble to overcome something bigger than themselves. We've seen that in the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, and you kind of mirror that iconic Avengers Assemble moment, but you do it in your own twisted Thunderbolts way. What conversations went into creating that sequence?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, the movie, when I first came onto it, Kevin said, make it different, do something different with this one, and wanted to, really embrace, I brought in these references from, being John Malkovich and Gondry stuff, and he loved all that stuff, and I was like, but we do need this big street sequence, and it almost is kind of a wink at a very traditional superhero ground level. Alexei even refers to it in the beginning, that was something Joanna Callow added that was so smart of, saving civilians in the streets, like this dream he has. And, I think at some point Kevin was like, do we have to do this crane thing? We've done a lot of fallen cranes, there's been a bunch of that. I was like, no, we have to do the crane because we need to show people that we had that level of scope at our fingertips so that when we make these choices to go into kind of smaller places and more internal practical sets and transitions, that it's clear that it was a choice and not that we were operating on a lower level of scale. And then also, I will say that whole sequence really, like all of the action in it, and it was very fun to do, really exists just for that one moment of surprise and twist at the end of it where it goes in a very different direction, and it's fun to watch that happen.
I want to talk about that because we have this emotionally charged Thunderbolts scene. I mean, it's emotionally charged all throughout the movie, but Thunderbolts marks the second movie in a row from Marvel after Brave New World, where the climax feels like it's bigger than the physical one. It's more of an emotional beat than a physical one, like the Red Hulk being talked down. Was that a conscious shift towards nuanced, character-driven storytelling at Marvel?
I think I mean, it more just came from the endemic story that we had to tell. Like when you have Sentry the Void, I mean, and people have said it online, like, how are they supposed to beat that guy? And it's like, yeah, no, we know. Like, it's always going to have to be a more internal version. I think what we tried to do is have that be more than a talking down and really find a visual action narrative way to dramatize what that internality looks like, and I hope it resonates.
It absolutely does. Thank you so much for your time, Jake.
Yeah,
the film
thank you
is
so much.
Incredible. I loved it.
Can't call ourselves that.
Thank God.
Thunderbolts. It's a cool name.